Okay. Ooh, okay, let's sit back from that. All right, welcome, everybody. It is 6 o'clock on Monday, June the 5th. As we're calling the meeting to order if you're here for the Board of Adjustments meeting. And we haven't had one in a while, but today we have one. June the 5th, 6 p.m. Let's go ahead and get this started. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Was there anything from the prior minutes that we have to, because it was a while back? Don't have to prove any prior minutes, okay?
We will do that at the next meeting, Chairman.
The minutes at the next meeting, thank you very much. Okay, then we'll go ahead and start this off. There's several new faces here on the board. We won't go through the introductions, but let's go ahead and open this up for anybody that's here to address the board. For items that are outside of the items on the agenda, you can come forward at this time. We'll address those items during the public hearing part of it for each item separately. But if you have anything you want to address the board with that's outside of that, now's the time. Okay, not seeing any hands or anything like that. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next part. All right, let's go ahead and now we're going to hold, the purpose that we're here for is to hold a public hearing to discuss, consider, and act upon the request that was for variances that are presented here. We have two of them. The first one that we're going to basically address is for zoning for a single-family residence for 202 Barnes Bridge Road. And right now for the agenda item, it's Air 23054. So we're going to hold a public hearing. Going to hear from the town. If you set this up, please.
Thank you, Rachel. Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Shurupa Sen. I'm the new Planning and Development Services Director with the town of Sunnyvale. Thank you so much for giving your time tonight. We have two variance applications in front of you tonight. The first one, as it says on the slide, is addressed from 202 Barnes Bridge Road. The property is zoned Single Family Residential District 3 or SF3. And the lot size of this property is roughly about 1.05 acres. The applicant is requesting a zoning variance from section 3.0503 of the UDO to allow a master bedroom addition that would encroach within the required 30-foot side yard setback. The table on your slide shows the standard front, side, and rear yard setbacks under our UDO for SF3 zoning. Staff recommendation for this variance, staff recommends approval of the variance based on the background that is written in the staff memo. Next slide, please. So on this slide, as in terms of what the request in front of you is, the merits of the request, the applicant is proposing to build an addition to the existing single-family home on this property towards the eastern side of the property. So if you see on the sketch on the right-hand side of your screen that's provided by the applicant, the existing home is shown in kind of the blue outline on the lot, as well as the dark or the blue shaded area is the proposed addition. You'll see a red dotted line on that sketch, which would have been the 30-foot side yard setback that is required for UDO. And the addition, you will see a portion of it would encroach within the 30-foot side yard setback. However, you saw on the last slide, as well as when I progress to the next slide, you will see on the aerial photo, there is a pond that runs along the eastern lot line of this property, which is existing on the next adjacent lot. Due to that natural pond, no structure can be built on the neighboring lot near the eastern lot line. The reason of me saying that is usually when we set up the zoning ordinance, the setback requirements, there are safety and other concerns for which those setbacks are set. In this case, because of the pond, even if the neighboring property owner were to build any additional structure or addition, it wouldn't get close to the side lot line. Additionally, you will see the shape of the lot line on that side rather than following the regular rectangular shape or orientation of a lot facing Barnes Bridge Road. It has kind of a jagged shape because of that pond again. That's why that corner of that addition is kind of going over the 30-foot required setback line. So as required by our UDO and state law, We sent 11 letters of notification within 200 feet of the subject property, and staff have received 5 letters of support regarding the variance request. You'll notice that in your report it said 3 letters, but we have received 2 more in favor of this variance request. That's why I said 5 letters of support. Those 5 letters of support also included a letter of support from the property owner who is right east of this property. So his neighboring property owner is also in support of this variance request. These are the circumstances that warrant a variance. It's usual and applicable as per our UDO and state law for any variance request that comes in front of the board. I'm not going to go through each and every one of them. They're all listed 1 through 10 on the next 2 slides. But that kind of gives you an overview on why and under which grounds a variance request should be approved by a Board of Adjustment or the board. Rachel, if you go to the next slide. Same, you will see that the main gist of the matter for any variance request is a variance request cannot be based on a self-imposed hardship or a financial hardship alone. In this case, the request is not a self-imposed hardship. The property does have a unique natural feature, which is the pond on the adjacent lot, which does not allow this property to have a very regular shape, as well as that 30-foot setback. Only a portion of it is going to encroach or going to be encroached upon by the addition. So from that lens, it does meet the criteria of granting a variance, and based on that, its staff is of the opinion that this variance request should be approved. The applicant is present here tonight if you have any question for him, and I'd be happy to answer any question. The next 2 slides, we have some site photos, or the next slide, sorry. Yeah, those are some site photos. You can see the pond on the left side of, on the top left photo, and on the bottom right photo is the existing house. That concludes my presentation. If you have any question, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for the staff members? Pretty clear. Okay, thank you very much. So we'll go ahead and move to, since the applicant is here, hear from the applicant. We'll open it up to the floor for the applicant.
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies. Just wanted, I don't have a lot of further comments. Rupa did a very good job for her first presentation, I believe, with the town of Sunnyvale. I've sat through many of them, and probably one of the more complete ones that flowed through very easily. It's a very simple solution here. This isn't one that warrants, I don't think, a lot of discussion. Again, there's a pond that what we're wanting to do in the way that it encroaches to the east, we already have the leg of our land that basically umbrellas this area from the road. And at the end of the day, even if the pond were drained, they couldn't build there because of the way the 2 lots are set up. So I appreciate your consideration and look forward to a positive outcome. Any questions?
Mark, it looks like that the pond is pretty much entirely in the Blow property?
Yes.
Except for that little, maybe a little bottom piece at the end?
Well, there is a part of it that's directly behind our house. And by the way, I'm sorry, Rachel, Mark Egan, 202 Barnes Bridge, Sunnyvale, Texas. There is a portion of it directly behind the house. As you can see where that red line, go back to that other slide, Rachel, the one there, that one right there. See the curved red line directly behind the house that kind of curves around from, it's an extension of one of the angled property lines and heads down to the bottom, which is to the south, to that horizontal line. That's the piece of the pond that we own, that this addition has no impact on whatsoever. And in fact, the land just to the south of that horizontal line belongs to the Howways, which is our neighbor to the west. The Blows property picks up at that 47.98 foot vertical line that that red line's associated with. The Blow property is everything to the right of that or to the east.
Any further questions, Jim? Did that answer your question, sir?
Let me find my piece of paper here. Yeah, and it sounds like we've got even more responses from the neighbors that still all support it than what was in our packet. Two more. Yeah, I think it's pretty easy.
I will say, just historically, having been involved with what happens in the town, sitting in one of those chairs in one way or the other for the past 20 years, understanding the intent, and I think Sarupa very clearly demonstrated what state law requirements are, but at the same time, there's reasons why things were written in the UDO and in the town ordinances the way they were. The one thing that the UDO and the town ordinances can't do is qualify gray area solutions. This piece of property, because of its unique character, is a gray area solution. You can't write in to the UDO and into the town ordinances adequate words. The UDO is already this thick. One time, it was 5 or 6 books that were that thick, that all got combined together. You can't qualify this. That's number one. Number two, again, as I stated earlier, the next closest neighbor who has any possibility to do anything to their existing property, structure that is in line with our house, is 400 and something feet away. There are 2 different properties, one being the Blows, which owns the pond, the second one being Gail, and I've forgotten Gail's last name. She has a driveway that's very similar to what the Blows driveway is, that becomes the dam of the pond. And then you end up being, and I've lost their name in my mind, they're the people that are 400, I think it's 425 feet away. So the objective, the 30-foot objective was, when all this originated, and some of it may have been before my time, the objective was to not have houses on top of each other. Sunnyvale has always tried to maintain as much of a rural character as it possibly could. We've lost some of that, but the intent is still there, and that's what drove this in an SF3 zoned area, and that's what this is.
Okay. Thank you. Any other members of the board want to ask a question to Mr. Egan?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Anybody else that's out there would like to come before from a public hearing of this case? No other people being noted. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing piece of this and then open it up for discussion among the board. Any questions that y'all have or want to ask them? Pretty clear? No questions. All right, then let's go ahead and take a vote. Take a vote, or we need a motion to take a vote.
We approve this request.
Okay, motion to approve this request for AR 23054 by Mr. Wade. Approved and seconded by Mr. Soji. All right, so we have a second, so we'll take a vote for it. Everybody's in favor, raise your hand. Everybody that's against, raise your hand. Hearing, not seeing any against, all in favor of 4. We do have, forgot to mention, we do have a quorum this evening as well. So for everybody in favor for it, so it passed. Congratulations, Mr. Egan.
Thank you very much.
Rachel, question, Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Since we have one member absent, can one of these alternates sit as a member? Okay, so we might want to
Okay.
poll them in case it's a 5-0 instead of 4-0, whatever your pleasure is.
Okay, thank you. We'll do that for, that one passed with 4. So, do y'all have any, y'all vote? You got to vote for positive or negative? Yeah, vote for. we go. Thank you very much. Okay, we're gonna close that case and then move on to the next applicant on the agenda. And then staff, do you have a update for us or a presentation for us for the next item?
Chairman? Thank you, Rachel. So the second application for the variance request is located on 418 Trip Road. The property is zoned Single Family Residential District 2 or SF2. The lot size is roughly about a little more than 8 acres. The applicant is requesting a zoning variance from the section 3.0404 of the UDO to allow an accessory structure larger than the maximum combined, there is a typo, maximum combined floor area of accessory buildings within SF2 zoning. The table below that I have on this slide is the abbreviated version for just this category, which is property or lot sizes between 5 and 10 acres. Whereas if you look at in your packet, I have the full table from the UDO that gives the listing of, okay, if your lot size is say between 2 to 3 acres, how many accessory structures you can have and what the combined sizes should be. Same between 4 and 5 acres, 1 or 2 acres. So it's based on the lot size, the UDO allows how many additional structures you can have, what their combined allowed maximum floor area can be, what their setbacks have to be, and heights, all that good stuff about accessory structures. For this particular property, because it's a little more than 8 acres, it falls within the category of more than 5, less than 10 acres. It's allowed to have maximum number of 5 accessory structures, and the total combined floor area allowed for all those accessory buildings can be 4,500 square feet. In this particular request, the applicant is requesting to build an accessory structure that's larger than the 4,500 square feet, and staff recommends denial of the variance request. And I'll go through the next slides to explain the background and the logic behind this. Now this plan on your slide, I have turned it to the left, so on your packet it's facing the true north. I turned it left so that I could enlarge it a bit more. It's a tall shaped lot with access on the left, well on the screen left, but actually on the north. Access is through Trip Road, through that U-shaped driveway. The existing home is there towards the front. The applicant is proposing to build that accessory structure. If you can see on the screen, the bottom portion of the drawing, the second rectangular box, if you will, would be the proposed accessory structure, and is requesting to be 5,800 square feet. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Rachel. If you recall from the table from the slide before, the applicant is allowed to have 4,500 square feet of total combined accessory structure. He's requesting 5,800 square feet. The problem is there is no natural or physical hardship exist to support this variance request. Staff have sent 17 letters of notification as required by the UDO within 200 feet of the subject property, and we have not received any response to the notifications. If we go to the next slide, now as you recall, it's similar to the previous application where I had this circumstances warranting a variance, but in this particular case, because staff is recommending denial, I'd like to focus on few of the circumstances. Like for example, the first one on the list, it says unique circumstances, that there are special circumstances or conditions affecting the land involved such that the application of the typical zoning regulation would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of their land. So that does not exist in this case. The UDO, based on the policy of the town council and the town policy making bodies, have determined that hierarchy of sizes and number of structures you can have based on your lot size. Here in this case, the property is zoned SF2. Any other SF2 lot within the town would not be allowed to have more than 4,500 square foot of accessory structures. There's nothing unique about this property that says that you have to have a 5,800 square foot structure. Another one I would like to point out, if we go to the next slide on number 6, Rachel? No, thank you. If we go on number 6, you'll notice that the precedent clause, I'd like to point that out as well. It's very important for Board of Adjustment decisions because Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial board. It is important because if a Board of Adjustment decision, irrespective of which way the decision goes, if the decision has to be challenged, it has to be challenged in a court of law. That's why the Board of Adjustment is the quasi-judicial board. The precedent means, just like in a court of law, if a particular variance is approved or provided the board approved a particular variance request, that does set a precedence, which means for future projects or future property owners or homeowners who are within the SF2 zone, have no other unique circumstance but want to build a larger accessory structure, can come and request for a variance because you have already by that time set a precedent of approving a variance of the similar nature. So I am not again going to go through each and every one of them, but there was no undue hardship under this application to warrant this variant request. With that, if we go to the next slide, these are the side photos of the existing property. As you can see from the driveway, the existing house, the back of the property is of course not visible. So the location of the accessory structure would not really be a problem as long as it meets the size limitation set by the UDO. So that concludes my presentation. Again, the applicant is present here tonight if you have any question for him, and I'll be happy to answer any question. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for the town right now?
I have one question. On what basis do you know is that 4,600 square foot set, or 4,500 square foot? I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, why 4,500 and not something else?
Exactly. That's a very good question. We would have to go back to the history of how UDO was developed in this town and based on what that criteria was set. Now, from a general planning principle standpoint, just like if I were to talk about setbacks, what I said, why setbacks were set in the first place. So usually when we look at accessory structures and if there are any size limitations, because many towns have different types of size limitations, it's not one size fits all. The reason sometimes those size limitations and number limitations are placed in zoning ordinances or in UDOs is to prevent clutter, visual as well as the property clutter. Because if you have no limit, hypothetically, a property owner can build as much as they want. There are drainage consequences. In some cases, these structures can impede the natural flow of water on a property. So it's an overall combination of land use aesthetics, property aesthetics and maintenance, as well as drainage and other criteria based on which a town determines how this is going to be handled. In this case, if you see, there is a hierarchy based on lot size. So that follows a logic of, okay, if you have a smaller lot, you're allowed a smaller accessory structure. If you have a bigger lot, which in this case is a large enough lot, so that's how the UD determined, okay, they can go up to 4,600, which is towards the higher end of the spectrum. Now, if you ask me specifically why 4,600, I do not know the answer to that question. That's how the town council set the policy.
Beyond 10 acres, do you know what the size?
So let me.
3%.
It says no more than 3% of the lot or tract.
Do you know what that works out to as far as square footage for 10 acres?
Well, it would depend. So if it's a 20-acre lot, so you do the 3% of 20 acres.
Yeah, I don't know how many yeah, I was trying to
About
figure out.
6, well, 20, you have to convert it into square feet first, so that's 43,560 times 20, and then 3%. I have to use a calculator, I'm not good in mental math.
Okay. Yeah, it would be helpful to me to know what
Okay.
that number is. Just
So let's do this, 20 times 43,560, so you're, I don't know whether it's doing it right. 43,560, 871,200, Does that sound right? Yeah, so 20 acres, you first have to convert it into square feet, that way they get a,
Yeah, it's, well, I was gonna divide by two, yeah. Yeah,
I think it's somewhere around 13,000 square feet for 10 acres.
Get 10 acres, you'd be allowed 13,000 square feet.
thank you. And the reason I was asking that is because he's close to eight acres, and between, a 5 acre lot would have been allowed 4,500. Just,
Okay. Any other questions, or were you through with it, sir?
So is this a dwelling unit or a accessory building?
right now it's well, the application that was submitted to us does say that there is an intent of it being used as a dwelling unit. So once, if the variance is approved, the applicant will have to go through a specific use permit process to get the dwelling unit approved.
So if this is a dwelling unit, which I understand has different rules, could the front structure ever be demolished?
Yes. So, well, it cannot exist where there is no main structure.
Well,
But in the interim, if someone wants to demo the main structure, wants to build a new structure, they can.
yeah, so can you approve this as a accessory building, maybe an accessory dwelling building, unit, facility, whatever? Could they still, would they still be in compliance if they demolish the main structure?
That is a difficult situation because you'd have to have it within say a permit have to be pulled or some kind of work has to be shown where there is a promise of, yes, there will be a primary structure. Or I guess, let me ask you this, if I'm understanding your question correctly, are you asking that will the accessory dwelling then become the primary dwelling?
Yes, can you convert, so if this were approved as an accessory dwelling unit,
Right,
which I don't think is what we're doing tonight,
no.
okay? So that's another approval process. At some point, could the decision made that this becomes the primary structure because we're gonna demolish the previous primary structure?
No,
So it
because
could-
the primary structure will have to meet certain requirements of the UDO that the accessory structure don't necessarily have to meet.
So this could never be converted to a primary structure or relabeled as a primary structure?
It should not, in my brief understanding of the UDO, no.
Okay,
Because this is,
but if they were to demolish the primary structure that currently exists, they could build a new primary structure.
right,
If this is an accessory dwelling unit,
Mhm.
is there gonna be new access to it?
None that
Not our-
has been requested,
Not our decision tonight, because we're not approving a dwelling unit.
no,
We're approving a
larger.
accessory building.
And actually, the variance request is specifically for a larger size accessory building. If the applicant were to build a 4,500, the same accessory structure, he could do it without the variance. The variance request is to allow for the larger size.
So, in the paragraph here where it's written that the applicant is proposing to build a metal barn to serve as an accessory dwelling unit, is that incorrect?
That's what the application says,
Okay, but we're not approving that tonight.
no.
So just to clarify, it's a partial barn and partial accessory dwelling unit? Is that what
Not
he's
approving the
proposing to
dwelling
build?
No, the structure itself, as the drawing that was, I think if you go back one slide.
Because the
Yes, so,
drawing looks like a
uh,
barn.
Right, so that's the drawing that has been provided to us as part of the application. That is the accessory structure, which the plan, as we understand from the application, is to become a dwelling unit, accessory dwelling unit. And the applicant is aware that once he gets the variance, he will have to go through the second process to convert it into, or be allowed to live in it.
Thank you very much. Let's hear from the applicant. Please state your name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Mike Tollison, Tolleson. For the past 33 years, I've lived at 142 North Pascal Road at the corner of Tripp Road and Pascal, right behind us here. In 2005, I bought this property with the intent of one day dividing it up and putting my 4 children in 2-acre lots on it. And as plans would have it, all of my children said, we don't want to do that. So my wife and I desire to build a permanent home on that building. I'm explaining this because, as Mark so well put a while ago, a lot of decision goes into intent. What is the intent of this request? And by the way, there's a small error on what she presented. I'm not requesting 5,800 feet, I'm requesting 5,400 feet. The ordinance allows 45, up to 45, which the building that you're looking at there is proposed to be 50 feet wide and 90 feet long. I'm requesting to make it 60 feet wide by 90 feet, which would be 5,400 square feet, not 5,800 square feet. So, back to the intent. So, the existing home that is on that property, my son, so I've got 6 grandchildren in Sunnyvale schools, along with a daughter and a daughter-in-law that teach here. My son and his 4 kids lived in that home for 10 years. We gutted it, spent about $250,000, took it down to the studs, new roof, new air conditioning. That was back in 2009. But that property has got major plumbing problems. We've tunneled under that house 3 different times, taking out cast iron, and it's a mess. So our intent is to build a barn. I would not call it a barn-dominium, as most of us have a frame of reference of a barn like that, and the whole thing is finished out into a dwelling. The primary purpose for this barn is to house my farm implements and my equipment. I was one of the founders of a company called CC's Pizza back 37 years ago. I have a lot of equipment, and that's, again, the reason I'm requesting 900 additional square feet as to what's allowed was for additional storage space to house that equipment. But within that structure, we are going to propose to build a 1,600 square foot apartment that will be used as a dwelling that my wife and I, my mother also lives with us. She's lived with us for the past 10 years. She's in her 80s. Would live in that apartment for a year or, a little longer. But our intent would be to demo that old house that is there and rebuild a very nice home that we would live out our days in. Again, we've lived where we are for 33 years. I've owned this property for 18 years. Lord willing, you know, we would live out our days in the home we would build there. And then that accessory building that would have an apartment in it would be used for like a mother-in-law suite type deal. And so I've got sheep and goats and donkeys and honeybees and chickens on that property. One extension of this is to have a shelter for them, which they currently don't have, which is not enclosed, just an open structure. But anyway, that's the intent. The request is for an additional 900 square feet. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody from the board have questions? Mr. Tolson?
So, Mike, I think you answered some questions. So if we can confirm, so we're asking for a 5,400 square foot accessory building, which appears to subsequently have a request for a dwelling unit to be contained inside the accessory building.
I understand that I'm gonna have to apply for another special use permit
Correct.
to allow for, I've been told there's no restrictions of that, it's just that I have to apply for it and get approval for it. I'm going by what I've been
I think
told by
that's
city.
a ministerial task, correct? I'm sorry? SUP has to be approved, but it's primarily ministerial, isn't it?
The specific use permit goes through P&Z and City Council
P&Z.
and Town Council.
All right. And then subsequent to that, it looks like you're gonna tear down the current primary structure and probably immediately
Well,
be in compliance,
I,
replace it.
you know, I don't know what I'm having for dinner. I'm not gonna put a timeline on it. I'm telling you, our intent, is to get out of the home that we're in, have a place to move into, store all of our stuff that we have now, and then demo the old home that's there and rebuild a much nicer home in its place. I don't have plans for that new home done at this point. Is that a year away? Is that 2 years away? I'm not sure, but it's in the very, I would say, near future. I don't think my wife wants to live in that barn any longer than she has to.
Can what you want to do be done within the 4,500 square feet?
Can what I'm asking to be done within the 4,500 square feet? Is it possible? Yes. Is it? I could live in an apartment the rest of my life, but I don't want to. That's the reason I'm going to build a bigger home. I could cram all of my stuff into the space that I have, but if I'm going to spend in excess of a couple of $1 million to improve a property, like everybody else, I'd like to be able to, have it meet my needs as comfortably as possible.
I don't have any.
Anything else? Anything else, Mr. Wade? Anything else? Anything?
Are you planning on changing the entrance once you demolish
No.
primary residence?
No, ma'am. I've already re-poured that beautiful Circle Drive once and spent about $55,000. I don't intend to do it again. And the access to that is also the access to this accessory building. So there's no new access gonna be requested. I've got two other entrances on each side of the property that I will eventually put a concrete culvert in just to make it look nicer. But the access to that accessory building is the access to the primary home that's there now.
We sent out 17 notices but got no responses
See the new response?
for the public hearings. People want to say.
Okay, anything else from you, Mr. Tulson?
Unless you have more
I
questions.
do have a question for you, sir. My question is that if you tear down the existing home now, primary home, and you build a 30,000 square foot house on that same
I
property.
won't be building a 30,000.
30,000, it doesn't change the restriction of the variances for the accessory building, correct?
That's
Uh,
not,
So the accessory building,
Based on acreage.
based upon the acreage, from what I'm understanding, and that's what the variance is asking for, is an exception to that variance upon that, you're still having that same square footage for the accessory building. Because you're not adding more acres to your property.
No,
So the, you have close to 8 acres, is that correct?
actually, it's a hair over 8 acres.
So it's a little over 8 acres, okay. So the building of the house that you have right now, if you chose to build, you have the option to choose to build that house now or to build that house later.
No, well, you always have a choice,
Sir?
but I don't have a place to live. I'm
Okay, so
building
that's
the
your
accessory building with an apartment in it so that I have a place to live while we,
So you could sell your existing house and then.
so we can sell our existing house, demo the house that's there, build a new house.
Okay.
How long is all of that gonna take? A year, 2 years? I don't know.
I understand. I understand that.
Yeah.
You can't predict that. And then, I'm sure you've read the hardship requirements, tried to meet that. What do you think qualifies you for the hardship of that?
I don't recall, I'd have to reread them.
Yes, sir? Okay.
I'd have to reread them
All right.
to answer that.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, then, thank you, sir. Would I ask anybody else since y'all have attended, make time out of your evening, would like to come in, address the board on this subject?
Name is Raymond Benners, 139 North Pasco Road. I live across the street from Mike, a long time. You sent out 17 notices. Nobody's responded. It's probably because of the way the letter was written. It was confusing to me. I came up and tried to get some understanding on it because it's kind of like a legal document the way it was described. So it was written for somebody knows what they're doing and not for somebody to understand it in general terms. So I'm here to support Mike. I think it's Mike's property. He should be able to build what he wants to on it as long as it's as beautiful as some other metal buildings or whatever I've seen in this city. I believe in the freedom of doing that, but I know there's restrictions, and I know that when Mike does build it, and y'all will approve it, that it will be someplace that everybody can drive by, and every time they drive by, they'll look at it and admire it. Okay?
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you for coming out this evening. Anybody else? Okay. Not hearing anybody else come forward for it, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing piece of this. Board, do y'all have any other further questions or discussion?
You know, I know this doesn't meet the requirements of our responsibility. That's the reason we get to say yes or no. And staff, I'll have to say thank you for your excellent presentation, both in writing and orally. But I do not recall why the UDO was written the way it was. I was here then. I just don't remember. These could have been arbitrary numbers because they were just numbers. They make a lot of sense. I was allowed to build a metal building on my property. It's very nice. I get lots of compliments on it and requests, how'd you get that done? Well, I got it done because state laws changed and override some of our requirements that allowed a metal building to go in my backyard, even though it's legal and I still have room for other buildings. This request doesn't bother me a whole lot. It's 8 acres of property. The majority of it is not visible from the street, my opinion. You see the primary structure, but it goes way back, always has gone way back. If I were to apply the same mathematics to 8 acres that are applied for 10 acres, I'd get 10,454 feet. He only wants 54 feet, 5,400 feet. We probably would be safe in saying that's the only accessory building you're gonna get. Of course, he could petition us again.
Only one I request, only one I'll ever build.
It's on record, but I'm not worried about that tonight. So, you know, in light of the fact that it's probably not gonna be seen because he's gonna build a much nicer primary structure in front of that.
It won't be directly in front of me.
It'll be to the side, I understand, but it's,
He's gonna talk, he needs to come to the podium.
What'd you say?
if you're gonna talk, yeah, come to the podium, but that's fine. I didn't ask a question.
Site plan gives a
No.
pretty,
If you're gonna talk, you gotta come to the podium.
sorry. The one drawing of the site plan, it's offset. It's behind the primary structure, offset to the right, just a hair.
And any future primary structure could be in exactly the same location, or it could be even expanded, so that it would possibly further block the view of the metal building, which we can't legislate. State allows us to put a metal building there under current law. It's not been changed. So I think I am in favor of allowing this, especially that nobody responded. And I apologize for the notice you received. It's always been hard for anybody to understand. I hope you got a satisfactory explanation if you came to the town, because that's the process. So I'm inclined to say this is fine with me.
We'd need to have a motion first.
Well, maybe it's just discussion now. Maybe and I'll gladly make a motion if you're ready.
Does anybody else have any other discussion for this?
Is there any precedent for East Trip Road? Because I know there's a lot of large barn structures on East Trip Road for properties this size that are bigger than what he's asking for, so I don't know if the town has
If there's
any record of that, or.
I don't know if there's any record of that.
And just to talk about, we discussed precedent before. I'm not really too worried about precedent, you know, as this creating a precedent for anything. Yes, we will, if we do approve it, we will put a larger structure out there, but they still have to come before the board and talk about the precedent and try to convince us.
The reason I ask is because I also live on East Trip Road, and I know we have structures that are larger than this, so I'm just, and some of my neighbors do too, so.
Yeah, and it's agricultural now.
Yeah.
Zoned ag,
It's zoned ag. It might stay ag, but he's gonna store equipment.
and it will stay ag.
So I'm ready to make a motion, Chairman, if
All
you're
right.
ready.
So do you have any other questions? All right, so then if there are any motions to approve the item as it is written, I think that we would want to make the adjustments to the size.
With all due respect to our staff, I move that we approve this variance request with the caveat that it be changed to 5,400 square feet rather than 5,800 square feet.
And I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion's been submitted and seconded. So now it's up for the vote. So anybody would like to vote for the 4 as it's stated with the amendment? Okay. Anybody against? All 4? Thank you, staff, for your recommendation on that. I do understand. Thank you for coming and spending your time this evening. And I think this concludes our meeting. Meeting adjourned.
Can you call for a motion to adjourn?
Oh,
Move we adjourn.
You're
I
okay.
think somebody wants.
Oh, I'm sorry.
yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. The quorum there.
Good evening, Chairman and Board. My name is Srinivas Chamarthi. I am a resident of Sunnyvale. I just moved 2 months back from Keller. So I'm here actually trying to understand the process. The reason for me being here is I just wanted to find out for recommendations or suggestions with the stuff which I'm encountering. I'm living in the neighborhood in the preserve Stony Creek. As I said, I just moved 2 months back. I purchased my property from Drews.
Sir, I don't mean to cut you off, but we can only talk about stuff that's on the agenda. If you have questions for any of them afterwards, you're more than welcome to stay and ask them, or you can come tomorrow and talk to staff, but we can't talk about anything that's not on the agenda tonight.
Not agenda, okay. So
Yeah.
what would the process, just come in person and talk?
Yeah, absolutely. You can just come up to Town Hall tomorrow to the Development Services window if you have something about your addition, and Sarupo or any of the staff there can help you.
This is related to the utility billing, like, which was like water went out, like
Any of them can help you up
500,000
there.
gallon, okay.
Yes, sir. Uh-huh. There's a utility billing window. They can help you answer those questions. And then there's Development Services, and they can help you answer those.
Yeah, I reached out to them and they really didn't have any clear-cut explanation, so there's the reason I came here.
Okay, if you want to come up tomorrow and ask for me, you're more than welcome to do that, and I'll get
Rachel,
you to.
Oh, I tried to reach and leave message to you, secretary or?
Yes.
Yeah, I left message for you because I contacted utility department director
Uh-huh.
about the notification, like 500,000 gallons of water was wasted.
Can you just come up tomorrow? We can't talk about this during this meeting because it's not on the agenda.
Absolutely, sorry, that's what, this is my first time coming, as I said, it was
I
2 months.
understand. I
And I
understand.
wanted to get some details.
I understand.
All right.
If you'll just come up tomorrow, we'll talk to you.
Thank you very
Sure.
much. She'll be glad to help you tomorrow
Yeah.
or whatever time you go up. Rachel, and
Rachel.
so
Sure.
she'll be glad to
I
help. you
move
with
we
that.
adjourn.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Wade moves, we adjourn the meeting.
Somebody second it.
Anybody want a second?
Somebody second it. I don't want to stay longer. I'm gone.
All in favor? We adjourn.